This is Uncommonly Remarkable, where we discuss the surprising everyday lives and notable accomplishments of community leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday folks like you and me. My name is Artis Beatty. I am a doctor of optometry and the chief medical officer for My Eye Doctor OD. Though we will inevitably touch on topics within my area of expertise, the opinions and the conversations held here are separate from my work with My Eye Doctor. Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with a guest whose friendship I truly cherish. Our friendship is, in fact, the oldest surviving friendship I have. Sometimes we talk often, and sometimes not much at all, but it's always like the conversation never really stopped, almost like we've hit the pause button waiting for our next time to catch up. And I'm excited to share this particular catch-up with all of you. Christopher is a musician most days, but his talents are so numerous it's hard to narrow them down. He describes himself as a dad, a friend, and a listener. He's a lover of music, of books, and of learning, with a surprising knowledge of hardware, construction, and all things tools related. But the amount of knowledge he carries around about the automotive world is astounding. In fact, it's probably why we became friends way back when, as there were few people that could tell me something about a then current car that I didn't already know. He can drive a stick, play the bass, build a mean Lego dream house, and still find time to read, spend time with his family, and be just about the nicest person you'll ever meet. If you're ready to learn a bit about any number of subjects, this is the episode for you. So now, ladies, gentlemen, all you remarkable people, welcome Christopher Neel to the show. Welcome, Christopher. It is amazing to have you here for the show. I can't believe it actually worked out this time.
I can't believe it either. We're actually physically in the same room together.
It's actually unbelievable because outside of thinking about recording an episode for the show, we have been talking about you periodically being in Raleigh, here and there multiple times. In fact, you actually showed up in Raleigh.
I've actually been here.
Right. And we couldn't figure out how we were going to run into each other. And so this is a miracle in the making.
It is. We're both awake at the same time.
This small window of overlapping awake time is key.
Yes.
And so it is really, really nice to actually see you in person. So thank you for taking the time.
It's fantastic. Anytime I get the chance.
I don't even know where we're going to start. There's so much to talk about.
No idea.
And the interesting thing for me is that we have this long friendship, right? I'm pretty sure you are my longest lasting, earliest established, still in contact friend.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That means
That's very cool.
I mean, we've done lots and lots of things together.
Yes.
And a lot of those things involved getting in a car and driving places.
Yes, very much so.
Spending time on the road. And we've spent a lot of time in our college days doing things together.
Yes.
And so I'm sure we'll talk about some of those things along the way. But one of the things that I know we're going to have to talk about, we got to have to talk about cars a little bit today. I don't know how we're going to talk about them, but we'll figure that piece out.
And I realize this isn't a car podcast. I don't want it to devolve into a conversation just about cars.
But there are some important car things out there.
I agree.
And although there are lots of podcasts and shows that are dedicated specifically to the automobile, most people don't necessarily sit down and listen to those. So like you go out and you pick a show because maybe you're thinking about a car purchase, or you're like us and you're just addicted to cars and you want to understand things. But sometimes dropping a little bit of car knowledge here and there, you never know when you're going to help somebody who may be making that decision.
It's kind of incumbent upon us to share these years of wisdom, automotive wisdom that we have.
I always try to figure out where is the best place to start, because people who are listening to our conversation can't pick up where we left off last, right?
Right.
So, there are lots of times where we may go for months and not talk to each other. You're busy, I'm busy. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, hey. And we pick up exactly where we left off.
It sure feels like it.
And that's a really, really nice feeling to have.
It is. It is.
You are a musician.
I am.
And I think that is
fascinating and phenomenal because that's not where you started.
It's not. And I don't think I really had a conventional path to becoming a musician.
Well, what happened? Like, how did you discover, hey, not only do I like doing this, I'm good at it, I'm going to do it. What kind of drove that path?
Well, the funny thing is, you say that, it's like it wasn't that I was good at it. I didn't really have any particular skill. I had more love for it than knowledge. And I had complete other plans in life. And I was going to go after, I don't know, you probably remember, I went to live in Germany for a year. Did a year of study abroad, came back after we were at Chapel Hill, and my plan was to go into the Peace Corps. And I was signed up, ready to go. And our good friend, mutual friend, Jay, said, hey, would you like to join my rock band? Which was funny because that was like the complete opposite direction of what I was thinking. And also because I didn't have any relevant skills for a rock band. But he was like, you used to play piano. I was like, well, yeah, a little bit. You know, he's like, you want to play keyboard? And I was like, sure. So went out and bought a keyboard and started making noise.
That sounds great, right?
Yeah.
Like, but is it really that easy? Like,
No.
Could you go pick up a keyboard and all of a sudden, hey, I'm in a band?
Well, I was in a band. I wasn't good. I shouldn't have been in a band. You know? I thought it was great. You know, I was like, hey, I'm in a rock band. It's like, but I didn't know what I was doing. And I didn't know that I didn't know what I was doing.
And how do you go from being hanging out and with Jay and being in this band to doing kind of what you love and doing it fairly often now with a couple of bands in the Atlanta area, right?
Right. Most of that is just good fortune, good luck on my part, just being, and part of it is I play keyboard, and it's harder to find a keyboard player than it is to find a guitar player. There's not as many keyboard players. So you can be in demand without actually being any good.
That is awesome. You find your niche.
Right.
And
right.
you create your fortune, right?
Right. I didn't know that. It wasn't some sort of master plan. It's just, you know, I started out playing keyboard and come to find out it's like, oh, nobody wants to play keyboard, but I'm the guy that has a keyboard. So, you know, every once in a while I get a call.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I remember that you did go to spend a year in Germany. Yeah. And although I would bet that you're not German fluent anymore.
You would be correct. Dead nuts on.
You still drop a German phrase here and there, though. Remind me, why did you decide to go to Germany? What were you doing?
I wanted to do study abroad, and Chapel Hill had a really good program for that, and it was a really good opportunity. I had already gone 4 years, and I had enough credits -1 to graduate, so I really didn't need to for anything. But I was like, this would be really cool, and my parents are very supportive, and they're like, okay, yeah, well, you can do that. And I think the choice to go to Germany, and I studied in Stuttgart because, as you may have guessed, is the home of Porsche. And I thought, you know, maybe while I'm there, I'll bump into somebody that wants, you know, is interested in hiring some American kid. But that didn't happen. But I think that was part of my thinking. I think I was kind of fascinated with being close to Porsche.
When I think about going to Germany, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but the first thing I think about is, Stuttgart. And then you start thinking about all of the German car companies. Yeah. Piled into this relatively small space, producing some of arguably the world's best automobiles.
Some of our favorites.
And you wonder, how is that possible? You know?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize, like, a lot of the German cars that you think of, like Germany is a, you know, fairly big country, but a lot of it is concentrated in southern Germany. Mm-hmm. Like Munich, Stuttgart. I don't actually know where Ingolstadt is, where Audi is, but a lot of it's not that far apart.
So BMW is obviously in Germany, and did you know that they built motorcycles before they built cars?
I don't think I did, but the thing that I remember is their roundel, their little insignia, is from a propeller from an airplane. So presumably.
That's right.
They were in airplanes too.
That's right. So I think the story goes that they were building airplane engines, and post-war, they were no longer allowed to build airplane engines. So they were relegated to, or they decided that they would use their engineering prowess to build two-wheeled machines, so motorcycles.
Okay.
And so that's where BMW Motorrad really started happening. And then it was subsequently that they converted to building automobiles. And so now they build them both. But
yeah, I didn't know that. But if you think about like how much we pay attention to cars, but like most of the BMWs that I can think of start maybe in the late 60s, early 70s. Like there were BMWs before that. Like I just don't know that they were imported. I don't know much about them.
Yeah. And so that was likely that in between where they were converting from airplanes to motorcycles to cars.
Yeah, I bet so.
So you went to Germany and you did the year, and
yes,
then you were thinking about Peace Corps?
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me about that. What was the thought process there, since you didn't get picked up by Porsche of Germany to work out?
Surprisingly, I didn't get to be a test driver for Porsche. I guess I liked traveling. I liked learning languages. And before I learned German, strangely enough, I went to study abroad in Germany, but I had spent 4 years in high school and 2 in college learning Spanish. So I had no relevant knowledge of Spanish, of German. So I had to learn that kind of quickly. But I did like learning language, and I did have Spanish learning background. And so where I ended up being, and I actually went through the process of applying, and I had gotten an assignment that was going to be, I don't know if I ever told you this, in Panama.
No.
Yeah, I actually was accepted into the Peace Corps, and I was going to go, I think, dig latrines in Panama. And I imagine myself, using my Spanish and getting more proficient and, working hard in the sun and I really did want to do something I really did want to contribute. I really wanted to do something, service oriented. And so that was the plan. That's what I was going to do. And I got my assignment. It was it's like a packet that comes in the mail. And it's like, this is where you're going. This is what you're doing. I was like, all right. And it was probably a day or two after that when Jay said, hey, you wanna play in the band? And so I actually called and told the Peace Corps, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm going to pursue another opportunity. And that's the last I heard about it.
Really?
Yeah, really. And it's kind of like the road not taken. I kind of wonder. It's like, I think that would have been really cool. I think I would have really enjoyed it, but it went another direction.
That was going to be my question, is that I think you've done now a bunch of adventurous things outside of Peace Corps, right? But if you look back and think, did I do what I wanted to do, and was that the right thing? Or do you kind of wonder what would have happened if you were to go out, if you had gone to Panama?
I will always wonder. I mean, because everybody I've ever talked to or heard of that has done that, it's an amazing experience. And it would have been great. I'm sure it would. But I really loved music. And in Jay's band, I had been working with them, not playing with them. I'd been traveling with them and doing videotaping and just helping out and just being kind of like the roadie guy. I didn't have any thought of playing music. I kind of had it in my head. It's like, well, I don't have any skill for that. That's what other people do. It would be great, but that's not for me.
Yeah.
So then when I unexpectedly got the chance to do it, I just had to think, I was like, well, that would be real. That's really what I would love. I would love to play music. It means so much to me. And so I think that's a big part of why I changed horses.
That's awesome, because we don't always get the opportunity to pick something that we really want to do and be able to pursue it. And, I've had the opportunity to sit down with a couple of people and talk about the pursuit of passion versus doing what it is that you have a talent or a knack for. And sometimes it's hard to pursue a passion if you're not actually good at the thing that you're trying to pursue.
Right.
And if you don't have the skill set to develop into someone who can do that skill with proficiency, then it becomes very, very difficult.
And frustrating.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so I think that's admirable that you would be able to kind of take that big step and say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Realize that you're not great at it yet.
In complete honesty, I I had a lot more to learn than I realized at the time. I think I thought I was pretty good, and looking back, I'm like, wow, I was really starting from zero, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us though, when you look back at where you started, you did have, at least I did, in a lot of pursuits, a sense that I was better at what it was that I was doing than I really was, right?
Yeah.
And some of that is just being novice, right? You're doing something, and for you, it's maybe something new or something relatively new, and you have some success at it, and you're like, oh, yeah, not so bad.
I must be good at this.
This is exactly right. And it's only after you look back at it that you realize, oh, maybe not so much, right?
And I'm glad in a way that I didn't realize, because if I had, I wouldn't have taken the chance. I would have known that, like, I'm not the guy for the job. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready to play in a band. I could learn.
Yeah.
I could go out in the woodshed and put the time in and get my chops up, but I didn't realize, so I just started playing in a band.
And, I think that happens to a lot of people. In fact, it probably happens to anyone in any sort of profession or genre. But you hear that with musicians more than you hear it with other folks. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of interviews with John Legend that I was going back and kind of listening to because I like John Legend. I think he's interesting as a person, but I like the music is something I really enjoy.
Absolutely.
And he talked about listening to his first album, which was an album that I would have listened to. I would have been living in South Florida at the time, so post college. But not quite done with optometry.
I remember those days.
Yeah. And he says that he listens to that album and he cringes some because he realizes how far he's come in music since then. And it's just interesting to think about that, because listening to the album, you're like, man, this thing is pretty good.
God,
he sounds great.
The thought of John Legend making music that's any kind of cringeworthy, that's hard to process.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's just, to me, being able to decide that you're going to move forward with something and then work hard at it, get better, and then realize, hey, I did get better over time. Yeah. I think that's something that we all should be able to look back and say we did, because it's a growing moment.
Yeah. And the thing that worked in my favor was, once I decided to do that, the band, we were sure that's what we wanted to do. And it wasn't a part-time thing. And we had jobs, but we spent a lot of time. So I spent a lot of time learning songs. And again, I wasn't as good as I needed to be, and I wasn't as good as I thought I was, but I was in circumstances where I had the chance to learn.
Yeah.
And work at it and improve. And
the full-time yet part-time nature of being in bands is part of the reason you've been able to do some of the other cool things you've done, right? Yeah. So I remember having lots of conversations and learning so much about power tools and hardware.
That's funny.
Because, like I appreciate a good power tool as much as the next person. I really like to have I like to use tools. I do a lot of stuff around home.
You know how to use them.
Yep. But apparently there is a huge difference among these things. And I didn't realize how much of a difference there was until you started talking about, no. Here at the store, this is what we do. This is the better thing. Yeah. If you're going to go pick something out, get this. Yeah. But the hardware store adventures, I think, are some of the best adventures out of the whole scheme of things that you've told me about that you've done.
There were some good ones, and it was a cool job. It was something I learned a lot in so many ways, because I split my time working at it. This is an old hardware. This is not a Home Depot. This was like an old Ace Hardware, and it's since been torn down, sadly.
Oh, really?
And strangely enough, as an aside, I was visiting a friend of mine that worked across the street, who's a mechanic, who wasn't there anymore, as it turned out. But while I was trying to visit him, that was the day they were tearing the building down. So this is not a place. This is, 30 minutes from my house somewhere. I don't go that often. So I happened to be there on the day when the excavators are like, crunching the building down. So I got like a little bit of video. I'm like, yep, that door that he just knocked down, that's where I used to work.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that job was a split because I was hired to work. It was cool because they had a really big nursery. They had really cool plants, all kinds of plants. So I learned about plants and herbs and flowers and vegetables and all kinds of stuff. But then also, the hardware part is completely different. All the nuts and bolts and tools and plumbing and electrical and all this stuff, and I didn't learn everything and I didn't learn it right away. But it's like, man, there's a lot you can learn at a hardware store if you pay attention.
And the hardware store stuff is so applicable to just every day.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there are so many things that go awry, they break, they stop working.
Right.
And if you know kind of a little bit about what parts are available, you can actually construct or build some things that sometimes not only just get you through, but are really good substitutes for whatever it was you had. It can be a working
solution. Yeah,
that's right.
That is true. Yeah, the more you know what's available, the more solutions you can come up with. Which I love being able to fix things. I love the feeling of being self-sufficient. If something breaks, knowing what to do, what tool, what parts, and having enough confidence to go, I can probably figure this out. Yeah. There's probably a way to do this, and it may involve YouTube, and that's okay.
That's right. And having that mindset, though, I think is cross-applicable. There's a lot of things that you face on a daily basis that are not necessarily physical things you have to fix, but other types of things that you encounter that having the mindset of, I can fix this, or I can work on this, or I can work around this. Right. It just puts you in a better spot to deal with some of the weird things that just come your way.
I would agree with that. And something I heard, and I don't know if it's a quote or if it's just something that they teach you at engineering school that I always thought was cool, is if you're an engineer, there's not a right way to do something. There's just a better way. And I'm like, I thought about that for a little while. Like, that's really cool. It's like whatever solution we've come up with to do anything, to build cars or bridges or anything, there's probably a better way that we haven't thought. It's like, don't be in the mindset that whatever we've come up with is the best way. It's probably not. There's going to be a better, somebody's going to come up with something better, and like keep that mindset.
Man, I actually think that is really true. There are things that I fix, and I have come up with this elaborate way of making this thing work.
Yeah.
So when you got here, you met London, and you've met London before, but London was really good. She only barked for like 20 seconds, which if any of you out there have had mini schnauzers, you know that it's a miracle. And but so London has a crate. It's in the laundry room, and when we built the house, we wanted to build a place for the dogs. And so there's a little dog wash in there, and then she has a little crate where she can sleep. And it has a sliding door on the front. And so there's two doors, and they slide past each other, kind of like they're on tracks, like a closet would be.
Okay.
And the first time we put a dog in the crate, you realize that, these two sliding doors, they look great, but functionally, the dog is never going to stay in there because the doors slide, and they're smart, and so they'll just move the door and they'll
figure it out. Yeah.
So my solution for that was, we should fix one door so that it doesn't move. And so that was a pretty simple fix. You just put a little bracket on, the door doesn't move. The second thing, though, is, you need to fix the other door temporarily so it doesn't just pop open. And so we looked at it. Would have been a simpler solution. We looked at it and we're like, okay, let's see. I know. Let's put a latching mechanism on there, kind of like you would get on a chest, like a travel chest.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Mount one side on the fixed portion, put the other piece on the slider portion, and now you got it, right?
Yeah, sounds like a winner.
Well, that requires getting some trip to the hardware store, getting a few pieces. You've got like 6 or 7 brass screws that you got to put into your brand new cabinetry to create this latch situation for the dog. But you roll with it.
Yeah.
And you roll with it for years. And then you realize one day that you could have also taken a piece of rod or plastic and clipped it to the length of the slide and put it in the track, and the door never would have gone anywhere.
like the broomstick in the slide door. Yeah, that is existing technology. You're right.
And so it was an elegant, complicated solution with my brackets, or it could have been the better way, which was the simpler, easier solution with the stick.
I've been there many times. You have to appreciate the process of coming up, even if your solution's not the best one.
That's right.
At least like you went through the process. Trying to figure out the problem.
The hardware store was also interesting for me because the parking lot always had something delightful. And you would send pictures of, this is the car that is at the parking lot today. And we would both sit around and try to figure out, why did they drive that car to the hardware store? Why was it there?
Yeah, there was I loaded a Miata that was pulling a trailer, loaded mulch in the back of a trailer pulled by a Miata. A lady came in it would have been an 80s Mercedes 560 SL, which is a very small, sporty-ish convertible. And she bought the biggest doghouse that we sold and drove around and wanted us to put it in her car. It's like, and it would have been easier to put the car in the doghouse than the doghouse in the car. And it had never occurred to her that, that might not be physically possible. And it wasn't, But
wow.
We tried to break it to her gently. It's like, that's not going to happen. I'm real sorry.
The car thing is just funny to me because until I met you, I'd never had anyone who could tell me something I didn't know about a then current car.
I know what you mean.
And the first day we show up at Carolina, we're in the same, it's called a suite, and it was in one of the dorms that's on South Campus, which is technically the newest part of campus, but even the new part of campus at Carolina is fairly old.
Right. And bereft of air conditioning.
Except for room 251 Hinton James, which is where I was.
That's right. That's right.
And so
had a window unit.
And now that I think about it, I may have been a little bit more popular than I would have been otherwise because of that air conditioning. But we talked for hours and hours and hours about useless car
Completely
stuff.
useless. Yeah. But fascinating to us.
Yes. And what I've gotten out of this over the years is that the average person who is going to make a car purchase is going into it without all of the requisite knowledge.
For sure.
And it's a little bit scary because, I don't know that people are always making the decision that's going to be best for them in the short or long term.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure we've both seen plenty of examples of that, of people making decisions. And, you just have to grit your teeth and go, oh, God, I wish you hadn't done that. I wish.
But I don't know which is worse, though. Is it looking at it and saying, oh, my gosh, that decision was not great. I wish you would have asked me. Or when they do ask you.
And do it anyway.
Right.
It's like, well, you really didn't want my opinion after all.
That is one of those things that it's a blessing and a curse, right?
It is.
You are able to give people as much information as they could possibly want to help guide their decision making.
Right.
And you really want the best. And there's probably a small selection of vehicles that you could probably fit the vast majority of the population in. You could just, if people were to come to you, say, nope, this is you.
But if you're looking to make a rational choice. Right.
But somehow auto manufacturers have figured out how to make enough variants that they can trick any number of people into getting things true. That it's just not the best thing for them.
And I think you have to accept at some point that if somebody comes and asks you for advice, they're not really usually asking for advice. They're hoping you're just going to tell them what they've already decided
that you're going to validate their
decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think about giving people automotive advice, well, let's back up a little bit. So you grew up in a Porsche family,
yes,
which is probably not fair because your view of automobiles is probably, it's tainted, right? Because
very much so.
It's not a fair place of comparison for most things.
Right.
And so I actually have to give you credit for branching out and learning things about cars that were not probably inferior,
Right.
so that you would be able to provide rational advice to folks.
Yeah. And a little context too, like growing up in Porsches now sounds like, these expensive luxury cars.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, it's like I'm old enough that at the time these were used cars.
Yeah.
And they weren't that. Porsche was a sports car maker at the time, but they didn't have quite the reputation in the U.S. that they do now. And my dad drove him to work. He liked them, and that was just his car. It wasn't like they weren't garage queens. He drove them, put miles on them. My sister and I rode in the back seat, and when the first one I remember was a 66 912, which is a 911 with a flat 4 instead of a flat 6 in the back. And 66 cars, I think that was before rust protection became part of the public consciousness. Yeah. So at some point the floor pan rusted through and we could see the road going by. And we thought that was fantastic.
Incredible.
It's like, this is a feature,
Yeah, my dad actually had a green Ford pickup, and it had the floorboards had gone to rust, and you could look down, you could see.
But if you're 7, that's so
it's
cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, look at that.
That's really the road. I can really see it. It's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, luckily, we didn't fall. It didn't ever fall through.
But yeah, and I think that's important context too, though, right? Because brands do change and evolve over time, and there was not the same cachet with Porsche in the 60s. As what you see
wasn't
today.
Quite as big a deal or as well known, but man, they were cool. And it's funny because they were not particularly expensive cars at the time, but the ones like those years, like Dad had a 66, a 73, and a 76. He had a 76 911S that was gorgeous. It was champagne and had a cookie cutter body colored wheels.
Oh, wow.
Champagne also. Gorgeous car. And, at the time, it probably cost what a new Camry would cost, maybe a little less. But now, that car is, if you can find one, is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are very few. I mean, there are very few cars that over time actually get to be worth more than they were when they were new.
Yeah.
And Porsche has had the good fortune to now have multiple models that get to follow that, and that's outside of the current kind of market that has made some of the special and GT cars more expensive than they really have to be.
And part of it is they really are engineered well. Like those older cars, a lot of them still run. A lot of them held up over time. You could keep them running more than, like, I'm trying to think of what would have been something like an Alfa Romeo or something else like that would have been in their market at the time. Were also cool cars, but there's probably not as many of them still running.
Yeah, there are a couple of really good articles around Porsche engineering and the build quality, but part of the build quality is repairability, and that a lot of the choices that were made around how things were assembled, meaning their position relative to other components, was done so that they could have access to those things should something go wrong.
So they did it with serviceability in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an extra layer of thinking.
Yeah.
To do that.
When you think about how complex it must be to be able to take an idea of a moving vehicle and then create the full product, thinking about serviceability, repairability is something that a lot of manufacturers kind of take as an afterthought because not their problem, right? Like you have an accident and you bend a panel, not their problem, right?
And thinking more about that or making that more of a priority, it's easy to make the case that's not going to help their bottom line. Like, who's ever going to care? Who's ever going to know? How's that going to influence somebody to buy their car?
That's right.
Unless a company like Porsche or Toyota, like, over time develops a reputation and then people come back.
That's right.
But that's a longer process.
In the pursuit of cars, and this is something that people ask me often, so I'll ask you because I want to see what you say about it. If you could have only one, and it had to be the car that you would keep, what would you buy and why?
Wow, that would be really hard. And I could only have one car.
You can only have one.
Man, I think right now, if price was no object, I would be. I don't know how well you're going to like this choice, but I'm fascinated by the Lucid Air. I think those are absolutely fantastic. They're cool looking, they're fast, but the technology, like the thinking that went into that car, like that car in some ways is ahead of the curve, is the cutting edge of electric cars. And I'm absolutely smitten with the thought that went into the car. And I think they're so cool.
So there's a couple of things that I'll pull out of that choice because I think that it's interesting and maybe people who are really familiar with the car world can attach to it. But the first thing is that it actually is a car.
It's a car.
And that said 25 years ago maybe wouldn't have been a big deal. But today it is a big deal because there are fewer and fewer actual cars, particularly sedans, being sold.
That's true.
You've got major automakers who no longer make any cars. So, if you think about Ford as an example, they've given them all up except the Mustang.
Right. Sure enough, which is crazy.
Yeah, which is
crazy.
Which is crazy.
Whenever when did they do that? 5-10 years ago? 5 years ago?
5 years ago. So,
but not that many years before that. If somebody had told us, who we have our ear to the ground, we keep track of this kind of stuff. We pay attention. It's like, they're going to quit making cars. I'm like, you're right. What are you talking about?
Whatever.
And it came to pass. It happened. It's for real. Same with Buick.
Yeah.
Buick doesn't make cars anymore.
Which is, that's probably even more insane for me.
It is.
So the fact that you chose a car out of the available vehicles, number one is, okay, that's different.
Any choice, I had to think about it, but any choice that I would have come up with, the first 75 choices would have been cars. Yeah.
Then the second thing is that you chose a car that is electric. And a car that, electric cars today have several wraps, some of them good, some of them not so good, right? And there's always the conversation around how green is an electric car because of the mining that it takes to create the battery. So, and depending on how you charge it, how long does it take for you to actually pay back the carbon?
Where's the power coming from?
That's right.
Yeah.
But they have several advantages, and Lucid in particular has a lot of advantages because the electric motors have instant torque. So carrying the heavy weight of an electric car to speed, you do that very well when you have torque from zero.
Right.
And Lucid has, to your point, battery technology, but more so motor technology that allows for high efficiency and a very compact package.
They're very, very focused on efficiency.
And so of the now cars that are electric, this one is starting to look like an interesting choice. And then the third thing is that you chose a car that is electric that is not a Tesla.
Correct.
If this were again 10 years ago, you wouldn't have had much choice.
No, that would have been the only game in town.
Yeah.
For a while. Yeah.
And so now we have any number of manufacturers that are somewhat dipping in the electric car world, some of them excelling much more so than others.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so we've got a world of choice to make. And so I think that's an outstanding pick, but it says a lot about
it does.
About where we are in our automotive journey.
An interesting point of context that you already know, but probably a lot of people don't know about Lucid is Peter Rawlinson, who's the head of the company and the chief technical officer, which I guess he's kind of the head of engineering the car, was the lead engineer or the chief designer on the Tesla Model S. So he comes from Tesla. And he really knows. And I think before that, he worked for Lotus, among other people, which is, you probably know, is near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
So when you hear him talk about what inspired him to, instead of staying with Tesla, who was successful and on the rise, and going with another company, the time wasn't doing much of anything, and it was a big risk.
Yeah.
It's really neat because, I mean, he said, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be part of this company, it's going to have to be cutting edge. It's going to have to be a science experiment. And I really think it, in a lot of ways, it is.
Yeah.
Because their party trick was, for a while, the electric motor, and I guess there's two in most of them, but their electric motors weighed about 60 pounds and could fit in a briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
So they could go to trade shows carrying a briefcase and open it up and say, here's our electric motor. And people are like, what are you talking about? Of course, the batteries are large and weigh a lot. But I mean, the thought that went into making electric motors like that, it's just amazing. And they're crazy powerful, crazy efficient, you know.
There's a controversy around saving the manuals, which, I really want to save the manual transmission.
Absolutely.
Because there's a level of involvement in driving that you don't get when you use an automatic transmission, or in electric cars that don't have transmission,
need a transmission,
or have single speed transmissions. That they do have a transmission differential, but
you're not aware
but you're not aware of anything happening, right? And for me, it's just the internal combustion engine, the action of a manual transmission in a car. Those are all things that for me are very nostalgic.
Absolutely.
I grew up driving, and I, like you, drive an enormous amount. And so, when people say, oh yeah, I put 100,000 miles on the car, and they say I've had it for 10 years, I'm like, oh my gosh.
What else are you driving?
Yeah.
What else are you driving?
I could put 100,000 miles on a car in a couple 2 years and a half, because of the joy of driving, right? And so the transition to double clutch transmissions, and then ultimately to transmission-less cars is a hard one for me. And I've tried several times to adopt a car that was electric, and I've always felt like I'm missing something, and I have to end up going back and finding a car that has a transmission that I can mess with. So
it's like, there's no doubt that everybody knows now that an electric car can be fast.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're known for now. They're crazy fast. Yeah. They can be fun to drive. They can be enjoyable. They can handle well. They can be engaging in that sense. But the sensory experience of an engine that you like the sound of, like winding out, like my dad has a Boxster, and you've had a couple of those, like hitting third gear and running that up. It's like, boy, I'm going to miss that.
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to miss that.
I think we've got longer around those types of cars than people thought we did.
Yeah.
Which is nice, right?
Yeah, it is.
And I welcome the changes in technology, and I'm looking forward to the second, third, fourth generation electric automobiles, because I do think they will continue to get better and better and better.
Absolutely. And battery technology in particular. That and infrastructure, charging infrastructure, that both are so early in their development.
Those two pieces are going to be critical.
Very much.
Being able to charge a car that as simply as you could put gas into the car will eventually happen. Yeah. We don't know exactly when that will be. Right. The number one question people ask about electric cars all the time, and I'm sure you get this too, is, well, how far does it go?
Right.
And while I understand why that would be a question, it's not necessarily a relevant question,
or not the only relevant question.
Yeah, that maybe that's better. Yeah. Maybe that's better.
But you're right. That is the number one, like by far the number one question.
And what's interesting about that question for me is that the vast majority of people drive their car farther than 100 miles or so once or twice a year.
Right.
Otherwise, they're under 100 miles, and their daily commute is not that far. Yeah. And so the relative ability of the car to go 300 or 400 miles between charges is not necessarily the most important factor.
It's really not. And there's a fear that goes along with running out of juice somewhere and being stranded. Nobody wants that to happen,
ever,
of course. Yeah. But you're right. It's like the times that most people drive the car that they would need that kind of range, it's vanishingly small.
It is. And so if you can get people to understand that, and then be able to plan for those trips, they can either decide that electric today works for me because I drive this distance infrequently. And when I do drive this distance, this is how I'm going to do it. Or it can be, I drive this distance on a frequent basis and it's not convenient yet for me to do that electrically. So I'm going to not have an electric car.
There are certainly cases where electric is not practical right now, for commercial vehicles like big long haul trucks. It's like, the amount of batteries you'd have to put in one of those is like, that doesn't make sense right now. That's right. Not really a good idea. It may be at some point.
We promised that we would not devolve into a car convo, and so. But I do think it's very important. We did a really good job of not starting to for a while. Yeah, we did great, but then we didn't do like a model catalog, which we could do. Right. We could start with.
We could become nostalgic about all the car adventures, all the cars we've had. Like we can name the cars that we've collectively had. We can name who knows how many. But the subject of cars right now is so interesting because it's changing so much, so fast, in such a fundamental way.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
That's right. And so what we'll have to do is we will have to have a sub-show.
Sure. I think so.
We can then start with the A's. We'll start with Acura and we will just go through the manufacturers and we'll critique them a little bit and talk about all the things that they have available.
Talk
and maybe
about how the ZDX was so underappreciated. Oh my gosh.
And we will give people the advice that they neither asked for nor wanted.
Right.
But
nor will they heed. That's okay.
But it'll be fun for us.
It will.
And we'll teach somebody something, right?
The burden of that wisdom will be lifted.
Because there is a 12-year-old version of you or me out there somewhere who is reading car magazines, preparing for their 16th birthday, and they really want to know.
I hope so. I hope there are still some kids that are that into cars, because I think that was about the year, maybe 12 or 13, when I really started reading car magazines and going, wow, this is cool.
Yeah, I think that's about right for me. And I actually kept stacks of magazines from the early 90s that cool. When my parents moved, they were like, here are all these magazines. And I was like, there's nothing I can do with them now.
Right.
But it was so amazing.
I did that too. And I also, at mom and dad's house, I still have a couple of manila folders. I do have some old car magazines, but I have some that I actually took an X-Acto knife and cut out the articles that I wanted to keep. Like, so I've got 3 different ones. One was just for Porsches. One was for, there's 3, I can't remember what, but one was just Porsches. One was for cars and one was for some, but so I've, did my own kind of
catalog.
Yeah. Editing. And, I don't know if you remember, Sports Car International.
Oh yeah, I do.
And I have most of those. I did not cut those up. Those were beautiful. And
you kept those.
I have most of those. Yeah.
That's
still
incredible.
On the shelf. Those are wonderful.
We're definitely going to have our sub show.
We would have to.
Before we go, is there any advice you would give a listener who's trying to make a choice on what they are going to do next? So if you think about where you were when you decided, I am going to pursue this music thing, there had to be a series of things that you either consciously or unconsciously kind of went through to make that decision. Is there advice that you have for someone who may be trying to make a decision about something that you should give them?
I think in my case, for too long, I assumed that music was something that was outside of my scope. That was something for other people, that I didn't have any training or ability. And that was always going to be the case. And that was, I was very much, that's not true for anybody. I would, with music in particular, I would want to encourage anybody that has any interest, any love of music, like don't let that pass you by. Pick up you can watch YouTube videos, or you can just try playing along with the song you like, or take lessons or whatever. But it's so very much worth it. And one thing that's fascinating to me that I didn't know something that we share. The next instrument I would love to learn how to play is cello. I think cello is
the cello.
wonderfully beautiful, and I would love to know how to play a cello.
The cello. I am making time to actually learn to play this cello, and I may never be fantastic at it.
It's okay.
But I am going to be able to play something. If it's only Three Blind Mice, I'm learning to play it on the cello.
Yeah.
Because I just think it's a fascinating instrument. It's beautiful, both from a sound perspective and the construction, and it's something that I really look forward to getting at least a novice level understanding of.
Yeah. Yeah, I just the joy that's possible. If music, I think music is important to a lot of people, and if it is important to you, and it's something that you haven't tried doing yourself, because I talk to a lot of people, and they're like, hey, do you know, they'll talk about music, and well, do you play? It's like, no, I really don't. You know, and I know people that own instruments and don't play them. It's like, pick it up and play. You know, it's like, and I'm not an amazing musician by any stretch, but I enjoy it. I've gotten over the hump where it's more frustration than enjoyment. And once you get over that, it's gravy. It's just wonderful.
I look forward to having you back, and I look forward to actually being in the same place more often.
If this is how it has to happen, that's the way we'll do it.
Yeah, if I had known that, I would have made up a show a long time ago, and tried to get you to come see it. So
I really appreciate the opportunity. I really, after listening to a couple of episodes, when you told me you had a podcast, I knew whatever you do it well. But it's been really neat, the guests that you've had.
Oh wow!
On.
Thank you for saying that.
You know some really neat people, and I do enjoy listening to podcasts, so I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. It's been fantastic, and coming in, I felt woefully underqualized for this podcast, not for any podcast, but this one in particular. But I really appreciate the opportunity. This has been wonderful.
Thank you so much. And as always, thanks everybody else for listening.
And so we end another episode. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. I certainly appreciate all your support. So if you enjoyed the content, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. The more you share, the more opportunities we will have to bring you great guests and their remarkable stories. And if you want to know more about the guests, get background information on previous episodes, or just learn a bit more about me and the show, visit us at uncommonlyremarkable.com. Feel free to leave me a comment or a suggestion, and if you want to be featured on the show, click the Contact Us button. Until next time, stay remarkable.